A todos, hoje, dia 2 de novembro de 2022, teremos mais uma live histórica aqui no Identificado, hoje com a presença muito especial da Paola Harris, autora de um livro, juntamente com Jacques Vallée, sobre a queda de Trinity, o Marco Aurélio Seixas, o Leonardo Vaz Rodrigues, e em breve estará conosco aqui também o Vitório Pacaccini. Esta live será legendada em português e disponibilizada aqui no canal João Marcelo. Só um instantinho. A Paola Harris é uma jornalista italiana que investiga o fenômeno UFO há muitos anos e que já trabalhou com os ufólogos Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée e Philippe Corso. E teve a oportunidade de conhecer pessoalmente o Pacaccini alguns anos atrás. Eu vou dar a palavra para você, Seixas, e para vocês conduzirem os trabalhos, e boa sorte para vocês na live de hoje, que será mais uma live histórica aqui no Identificado.
Obrigado, João. Thank you, João. Thank you, Leonardo. Miss Harris, thank you for accepting our invitation. Our group admire your work, and we really enjoyed your last book, written in partnership with Professor Jacques Vallée. Here with me are Leonardo Vaz, is a civil servant, João Marcelo, ufologist, YouTuber, and digital influencer. Vitório Pacaccini will soon join us in the live. He's a civil engineer and one of the first and main investigators of the Varginha case. And I, also an ufologist, a cardiologist, and a retired DJ. And well, let's get started. I'd like to ask you for your opening words and already take the opportunity to make that classic question, Mrs. Harris. When and why did you get involved with this fascinating phenomenon? And also, could you please summarize the story for those who haven't read your book, Trinity, The Best Kept Secrets? Thank you very much.
I began working with Dr. J. Allen Hynek in 1980 after I saw the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Sorry, I meant the story that you
yeah, but you asked me how I got involved in my.
Okay.
And I will leave space for you to translate. Otherwise, you won't remember everything I say. So I became involved.
No, sorry to interrupt. We are gonna make subtitles afterwards. Once we finish our interview, João Marcelo has a partnership with translator that will put the subtitles. Okay. Let's talk in English at your wish.
All right. Well, I began working with Dr. J. Allen Hynek when I was in 1980, when the movie Close Encounters came out, because I didn't know if the subject matter was real. And at that time, I was in my 30s. Today, I'm 77 years old. So I have worked in this field for a long time and started working with the best, an astronomer. So I knew in 1980 to 1986, when he died, that this was real, that this was something that was worldwide. So he asked me to do the Italian translations. And then I moved to Italy in 1992 to teach at the American Overseas School of Rome until 2007, when I came back to the United States. So I was able to work in Europe for a long time. And when I was there, I heard about a case in Socorro, New Mexico, 13 miles away from where the atomic bomb exploded, of two little boys who had witnessed an avocado-shaped UFO come in take out a piece of a radio tower and land. So it wasn't really a crash, it's a controlled crash. I did not realize until 10 years ago that it would be me to do the story. And what happened was the son of the pilot that flew that area in 1945, 1 month after the atomic bomb, saw two little Indian boys on the hill. Those boys watched the craft come in. They went up to the craft and saw three beings. Went home, told the father and Sheriff Apodaca in Socorro, and then the Army Air Force, because they were together, came in, and it took them 1 week to clean up the crash, and the boys saw every day of that cleanup. What's important was that I began working on it in 2013, then for 5 years, and then Jacques Vallée knew there was metal attached to this story because at the end, the last day, the 9-year-old boy went inside the UFO and pulled out a piece from the wall, a bracket, and he gave it to me. I put it in a bank for 2 years, and Jacques was interested in the metal. So when he contacted me 4 years ago, I gave him the piece, and then he went down to New Mexico with me 3 times a year after that to do the book Trinity, which is this book. And he went down every year, and we were able to get more and more information. It's important because it's before Roswell, it's before Kenneth Arnold, and it is a statement against the explosion of a bomb, which was not a test, it was a bomb, and what the nuclear situation says for the planet today.
The ship, the crashed ship, let's put it this way, was in one piece. Those little boys enter on a ship that was mainly intact,
except for one panel, the door panel, that was blown out. The panel was blown out when it hit the tower. It hit a radio tower. That's why the airplane came in. It hit a radio tower, and what happened was that it spewed out a lot of material that looked like fiber optics, which was angel hair. We call angel hair. And the angel hair, the boys put it in a bag and they decorated the Christmas trees with it because they didn't know what it was. So the witnesses in the book tell us how the Christmas tree had this strange stuff on it. There was no electricity in 1945 on their ranch. And they saw this angel hair that came from the craft, plus the little girl in the book saw strips of what looked like aluminum foil that when you'd crunch them together, they would go back to the same shape, which is very much what was talked about at Roswell. This is before Roswell. This is 1 month after the atomic bomb. And this is a story that Jacques Vallée thinks is history. It's a history book. It's not a UFO book. This happened.
Okay. You told us about you mentioned the brackets that was.
Hi, Vitório.
Hello, Paola. How are you? Hi, everybody.
I am so happy to see you.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello,
that's
Vitório.
the same with me. So happy to see you. It's been a long time.
I have so much to tell you. You need to contact me. I have not seen you since 1997.
That's right. It's a pleasure for me to be back in touch with you, my friend.
Okay. I have a lot to tell you, so please contact me, okay?
Okay, I'll give you all my numbers and emails and everything. We will be in touch.
Okay.
Pacaccini, it's a pleasure to meet you and to know you. We made an introduction. We mentioned you and your background. We were expecting your participation. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I started asking Mrs. Harris about to make a resume about her book written in partnership with Professor Jacques Vallée, and she was telling about the kids that went into the craft. She told me that only the front door was open. The craft was mainly in one piece, and I was about to ask her to talk more about the bracket and other exotic materials that were found and handled by the witness. Could you tell us more about this?
Yes. First of all, the witnesses in 1945 were children. So they remember everything. And because Jose moved to California and Remy moved to Gig Harbor, Washington, they had not seen each other for 60 years. So when I went to question them, and I went in person, I only do field research, as Vitório knows. I only do field research. I met Colonel Corso there with him. I don't do anything on the telephone. I don't do anything on internet. I went to Washington State, and Remy Baca, who was the 7-year-old boy, said to me when we went up to the craft, I had a vision, the beings, they were 3 little gray, spindly, long arm, big head, insectoid eyes beings. And he said they gave me a vision of people falling out of skyscrapers. Now, this 7-year-old boy never saw a skyscraper in 1945. These beings were making a statement. When these beings, when the craft stopped, and you can call it a crash, but it was intact. It was an avocado-shaped craft with a little dome. This avocado-shaped craft in the book is the same as the Lonnie Zamora case in the 1960s, because Jacques talks about Socorro Lonnie Zamora, and he talks about Valensole Maurice Mas. And I had just come back from France. I was in Valensole a month ago. I went to where an avocado-shaped craft came down, and they interacted with Maurice Mas in the lavender fields. And I've spoken to the people there, because there are 3 cases in Trinity that's important, because they're avocado. It is not a flying saucer. And before 1947, that was Kenneth Arnold, the word flying saucer did not exist. So the little boys, the young men who cleaned it up, it took a week for the Army aircraft to clean it up, did not know what they were looking at. There was nothing in the society that had anything to do with what they were looking at. And we're convinced that this is a statement that's been made because 60 years later, if I hadn't done the story, it would have been dead. Nobody would have known about it. This is a statement against nuclear, against when we exploded the atomic bomb at Trinity. The crash site is 13 miles away, 13. And the Manhattan scientists were in the Owl Bar and Cafe, which is 3 miles away from the crash site. And that's where their quarters were. And Oppenheimer had to know. I mean, it would have been normal. I've questioned the people at the Owl Bar and Cafe, and they saw the Manhattan Project scientists. So this is a statement, and Jacques did a beautiful job with the book, because he made it a history book. And I'm going to say this over and over again. It is not a UFO book. It is the history of planet Earth. And when we do something as big as exploding a bomb, and it was not a test, it was a real bomb, somebody notices.
Okay. Leonardo, do you have a question to Ms. Harris, please?
Yes, I do. Mrs. Harris, Trinity received some criticisms related to the children's age and their testimonies, since they may mix the memories, and also about the similarities with the Roswell case that took place 2 years later. What do you have to say about these two topics?
Well, you have to follow the data. This is not opinion. I interviewed them separately. They had not seen each other in 50 years. The story was the exact same story. And as far as Roswell, Roswell is if the field cooperated, which it does not, we should be having conversations with the Roswell people to see the similarities in the case, but our field is one of division. Everybody thinks they have the story and they don't want to share information. We must remember the story belongs to the people of planet Earth. It does not belong to us. And children, Remy has a photographic memory. Jose was a state trooper, a policeman in California, a state trooper. Now he lives in Socorro. Remy lived in Gig Harbor, Washington. And when I went to be with him, I said, where do you think they took the craft? And he said, because it was the first crash, it went into the Atomic Energy Commission files. There was no blue book. You have to know the history of ufology to know there was no Air Force. So what happened was, because Remy was working for the governor of Washington State, he was Hispanic. He was Spanish, so he got her elected as governor. She was the head of the Atomic Energy Commission. Her name was Dixie Lee. So we have data. This is not opinion. This is data. So her name was Dixie Lee. And she said, thank you, Remy, for having me elected, helping Hispanic community. And she went to the files of the Atomic Energy Commission, showed him the file, opened it up, and closed it. Because the Atomic Energy Commission files are above top secret, above the president, above anybody. You cannot go to the Atomic Energy Commission files. The classification is above everything. And so Remy told me that. So because everybody says, where did it go? The exact same story, 60 years later. And the other two witnesses were children too. Sabrina, that played in the house with the fiber optic stuff from the tree and the long, strips. Jose did not know that his father went back and found long strips of aluminum foil. He did not even know that. So she said, yeah, it was in the drawer. She tells you where it is. When people remember, they tell you the details, especially children. Now, the other question, Leonardo, is why did they wait 60 years? It's because Jose Padilla took something that belonged to the government. He took a piece from the inside of the UFO. You're not going to talk about it. Okay, so he waited 60 years before talking about this case. And when the Army came to Mr. Padilla, they asked two things. Can we cut your fence because we're taking out a 30-foot weather balloon? Well, you don't have a 30-foot weather balloon. And I have been to the fence, I don't know how many times it was cut. And they made a road to take out this thing. Trinity is in Spanish. I'm hoping people will read it because Jacques Vallée is very detailed. And I don't care what the criticism is. Jacques Vallée is a legend. He is a scientist. He thinks this is the most important case, one of the most important cases, even though he has Valençol in there, because it's history. It's history. It happened around the atomic bomb.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Harris, Trinity has many similarities with a lot of other cases like Roswell, Varginha, and so many others. And we have an expert here in Varginha. It's Vitório Pacaccini. Pacaccini, would you please join us and say a few words about your research or any question you want to ask to Mrs. Harris?
Well, first of all, once again, it's a pleasure for me to be with all of you. João Marcelo, Marcos Seixas, Leonardo, my dear friend Paola Harris. I'm honored to be here with all of you. Well, the Trinity case is so interesting, it's so important. Paola, I would like to ask you if you can establish any correlation with the Roswell case, because as we understand, a couple of years before Roswell, UFOs were already flying around this San Antonio region, and probably because of the nuclear tests and the nuclear force already established in New Mexico. So in your opinion, according to Mr. Vallée's research, in your research, can you correlate the events? So these extraterrestrials were already flying around that region in New Mexico, probably because of the nuclear tests, right?
Exactly. And Leonardo, Virginia has children too.
Yes,
so the
that's
same
right.
question, it can be asked. Children are traumatized. They're traumatized and they don't forget very easily. So yes, the Trinity case, the crash site is 13 miles from where the bomb exploded. The Jose tells me that on the morning of the explosion, they did not tell the people they were exploding an atomic bomb. It was a 150-mile radius of damage. His mother opened the door and was blinded in one eye. And Jose lost his eardrum.
Oh.
And Remy, his bed went from one end of the room to the other. These children are part of the traumatized civil population that was not told. And they couldn't be told because it was top secret, but they did not remove them either. So the problem is this, that if you go to that area, and I have been there so much, all the plants are smaller. When the crash happened, the area around the crash started burning because there was mesquite. The similarities, very few, because Roswell was 3 miles of debris. And we have the exact spot where this craft landed. You see the circle of 30 feet. You see it. Nothing is growing there. You see it. So we have the location. We have the witnesses. And we have somebody going inside and getting a piece off the wall. So there's nothing of that in Roswell, even though I was very close with Jesse Marcel Jr. And I brought him to Italy and we spoke. And he told me about his father coming home and all the pieces he put on the floor and the I-beams and everything. So I have done all the research on that part of all of it. And Corona and Aztec, Stanton Freeman and Ramsey have done research there. If you're going to have the world change because of an event, and Roswell is 3 hours from Socorro. And it's in 1945 to 1947, and the 509 Bomb Squadron, and you know this, Victoria, because you were there with me.
Yes.
Right, is right there in Roswell. Then may I suggest to people stop using opinion and start using geopolitical events and data that you can actually feel, because it's not opinion anymore. It's when you do the research. If the bomb squadron is there, somebody's interested. If the bomb is going to go off and hurt a lot of people, somebody is interested. And then the irony is that if you go to Trinity today, there is a plaque, and it's from Robert Oppenheimer, and it says 1945, we have started the nuclear age. And it's from the Bhagavad Gita, says, I am death, the destroyer of worlds, plural, the destroyer of worlds. And the plaque is right there at Trinity. And because I think Oppenheimer was sorry and was upset after the Manhattan Project. So somewhere on the planet, whether it be Maelstrom Air Force Base in 1969, when all the missiles went down, you know, the Maelstrom Air Force with Robert Salas for being president, or the sightings in Ukraine now, or wherever you are, there is a correlation between nuclear and what we're doing to the planet to this group of whatever. I can't name them ETs. I don't know what they are. I don't know where they come from, but that's a geopolitical event. It's a geopolitical event that catches someone's attention. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yes, you did.
Book. This is a history book.
Fantastic. You did it perfectly well. Do you understand that the spacecraft had landed, or it was shot down by some Air Force?
Well, you know, Victoria, I've been to New Mexico, and the storms are terrible. The thunderstorms are terrible. And there was a thunderstorm during Roswell. And there was a terrible thunderstorm during this crash on August 16th, 1945. Terrible thunderstorm. And the craft hit a radio tower. So much so that Jose went up to the radio. They called it the Italian Tower. It was Marconi Tower, I think. And what happened was that one of the little boys went up to see what part came off. So it was, then we have to ask the question, was it a controlled landing? Was it a message? And I can't answer that. Was Roswell a gift? Was it a message? I can't answer that, but it is a very important question.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Harris, I want to say hello to our colleague that has just entered the live, Dino Nascimento. This is an astronomer and a musician. Hello, Dino. How are you?
Hello, Dino.
Hello. Nice to meet you, Miss Paola. Olá, Vitório. Olá, pessoal, tudo bem? Estou acompanhando e depois, se pintar alguma pergunta, eu faço.
Okay, he's following our conversation, and maybe afterwards he made a question for you. Okay, Ms. Harris, before giving the word to João Marcelo, I want to play the devil's advocate. You mentioned the shock, the crash between the ship and the radio tower, and I noticed that the USA have a long history of UFO crash tales. Brazil as well has its own tales. For instance, Ubatuba, Varginha, Magé, and many others. But all of them, with no exception, are based on limited eyewitness testimony. When we talk about crashes and retrievals, I wonder if a race can create an interstellar craft, a craft that exceeds the speed of light or bend the universe to allow long flights they would be able to avoid destruction by a lightning, a radio tower, or a military jet fighter. And that reminds me of a saying that goes, quote, "In God we trust, for everything else bring me data." I'd like to hear your comments on this.
And number one, may I suggest that you all try to buy the book Eyes Only by Ryan Wood. It has 93 crashes, 93, including Virginia. It had the 1945 crash. It has the Cape Girardeau crash. It has 5 crashes in Italy. It has crashes from all over the world. It is in my library. He did his work. It's called Eyes Only by Ryan Wood, and it has the 1945 crash. Then the best researcher because he's a field researcher, Timothy Good from England, went to see Remy Baca and included the 1945 crash before I got there, and in his book, Earth, an Alien Enterprise. And you know I'm an educator. I have a master's in education, and I believe people should read, not just believe things. You go to the source and you read. And my answer is just opinion, because I don't know. I don't know. However, if they hadn't crashed, we could not talk about nuclear or the bomb. We would not have a conversation here about a serious, serious problem on planet Earth after 1945. There would be no conversation. And I always tell everybody that when this opened Pandora's box, when it opened up the nuclear age, and this is nothing, my most dangerous interview was in Italy when I interviewed Guy Andronique for the H-bomb tests that the French did. They did 800 H-bomb tests in the Bikini Atoll. 800. And they have flyovers of UFOs constantly. And the H-bomb is bigger than the A-bomb.
Uh-huh.
So, and then they came in, they stole everything. They stole my film footage. They stole the computers. They stole everything in my house in Rome when I did that interview. Because I was trying to say there's a correlation. The UFOs, no matter what they are, do not destroy the island of Fangatofa. The UFOs did not destroy Trinity. They mainly make a statement. So the thing that happens is opinion, Marco. Opinion, my opinion is that this is a statement that the only way that you can win the nuclear chess game is by checkmate, which means everybody has to have a nuclear device. Everybody. Otherwise, this planet, Russia has one, America has one, India has one, China has one. It is not the way to proceed on a planet with intelligent species to keep playing chess and moving the pieces. Because at some given point, we're going to either destroy ourselves or something will happen. So this is only opinion, because you asked me why. It was a statement. It was a statement. If this book hadn't come out, in fact, I always say to Jacques, do you realize they knew we were going to write a book in 1945? Do you realize, Jacques, they knew we were going to come here in 2015? They knew. Those beings knew. Otherwise, why crash? It's a statement. And it has to do with time, and it has to do with a history, geopolitical events. It has to do with geopolitical events. So I want to precise this. It's only an opinion for me.
Okay, perfect. João Marcelo, do you want to make a question to Miss Harris? Quer fazer uma pergunta, João?
Sim, eu queria fazer uma pergunta que, de certa forma, vai conectar os dois convidados. Pacaccini, você esteve em 96 ou 97, foi convidado a palestrar em Roswell. Varginha estava na crista da onda da ufologia mundial, né, em 96, 97, o caso Varginha. E o caso Varginha estava até, de certa forma, ultrapassando Roswell. Tanto é que houve uma reunião da Associação Comercial de Roswell em 97, e eles disseram mais ou menos assim, nós temos que fazer alguma coisa, porque Varginha está passando Roswell. E aí fizeram um grande evento por ocasião dos 50 anos do caso Roswell. Eu queria que você falasse um pouquinho como é que foi essa sua visita a Roswell, você esteve nos locais lá relacionados ao caso, como é que foi você conhecer Roswell, os pesquisadores, você teve contato com talvez o caso mais famoso da ufologia brasileira, que é o caso Varginha, né? Depois você teve a oportunidade de conhecer Roswell, lá você teve a oportunidade, se não me falha a memória, de conhecer a Paola Harris, né? Eu queria que você falasse um pouquinho como é que foi essa visita, você ter contato com os pesquisadores de Roswell, como é que você viu a pesquisa de Roswell, a pesquisa de Varginha, como é que foi conhecer a Paola nos Estados Unidos?
Well, that's a very good question.
Sorry, Vitório. Do you translate the question to Ms. Harris before answering?
Well, my friend João Marcelo, Paola, is asking me about Roswell, my visit to Roswell at that time, and my impressions of the whole investigation in Roswell. For me, I was honored. The invitation came from Michael Lindemann.
Yes.
At that time, he was very connected to the Roswell Museum.
Right.
And the director at that time, I just forgot her name, but I will remember. Just a second, I will remember her name. And she sent me this email here in Brazil, inviting me to go to Roswell. I was honored. It was a pleasure for me. And once I was there, I was very impressed after meeting you, my pleasure, and our colleagues, Stanton Friedman and Clifford Stone. I've been in his house too at that time. I remember Bud Hopkins was there too. And I had the opportunity to go to the Roswell crash sites. They asked this person, the museum hired this person to take me out there, right to the places, Corona and McBrazel's little farm. So it was just amazing. I enjoyed very much being there and learning more about the Roswell case. For me, side by side with Varginha, we have two very important cases, and now I'm including Trinity, because as you said in a very well explained way, that we had witnesses, eyewitnesses, no matter if they were children or adults, but their testimonies are so important. This is what happens when we have this kind of situation, when a UFO crashes or it is shot down by some Air Force and the militaries take over the situation, leaving little pieces of this puzzle for us to come after it and start to get it together, get all these pieces together. So this visit to Roswell at that time was very important for me. It changed my life forever to be there with you, my colleagues, researchers, and learn more about the Roswell case. I see some similarities in a certain way of speaking between Roswell and Varginha. And now, hearing from you about Trinity and everything that took place in this important case, I'm very impressed too. So this is the point. We now need to get together as much as possible to exchange information. I also had some information at that time that the United States Air Force was testing this special radar system,
right,
that they used to call it scalar. And somehow they found a way to weaponize this radar. And since these UFOs were flying around Roswell because of the nuclear weapons in the Air Force base out there, they decided to use this weaponized radar system against the UFOs, and this probably caused them to collide one to another, and this is how the crash happened at that time. Do you confirm that? Is it possible that this radar system called Scalar was really weaponized and used to shoot down the UFOs in Roswell, dear Paola?
I can't confirm it, but I can tell you, I wrote a book called Conversations with Colonel Corso right here. And the reason why I was with you was because I was supposed to bring Colonel Corso to Italy. So I did not have a place to stay, Victoria, there. And I went to the press club and I said, and it was a big party. You know, everybody was there. John Mack was there. Everybody was there. Willie Striever was there. There was no places for me to sleep. And they said, open up the phone book. And I opened the phone book. And there was one hotel that Sally poured in. It had a hotel for 3 days. And it was the room next to Colonel Corso.
Ah.
And nobody could talk to Colonel Corso. And the universe had me in the room next to Colonel Corso. Okay?
Okay.
And I was the only journalist that was close to Colonel Corso because there was a lawsuit against the day after Roswell, and he could not speak in the United States. So I brought him to Italy twice. And he told me that story, Vittorio. He told me 2 craft had a collision. He told it to me. So this is not Paula Harris because I don't know. But he said, this is what he said. He came into the room the next day. I'm going to be honest with all of you because I saw him coming out of his room. So I said, come and give me an interview. I need an interview and I'm bringing you to Italy. And he said, I think that two craft collided. And he said, I think that one showed up 10 years later at White Sands. And I said, why do you say that, Colonel? And he said, I was the head of a missile battalion in White Sands in 1957. And when I was flying over where I was, there was a UFO sitting on the sand there, the terrain. And I went alone to the area, and we have all the drawings because we did them in Italy. We did this story. And he said, I went alone. He said, and I saw the craft appearing and disappearing. And he said, I threw cactus underneath it and it squashed the cactus, he said. So I knew that it was physical and it was also ethereal. And he said, from the left-hand side of a cave came a being with a helmet. And he said it had a silver, band with a red interface in the middle, like a stone. And the being said, I need you to shut down your radar or I can't take off. And Colonel Corso said to me, it's all in this book. He said, I was told to shut down the radars at certain times of the day, but I don't know what kind of radar they were using. Okay. And he said, he took out his gun because he's Sicilian from Sicily. He pointed it at the being and he said, are you a friend or foe? And he's sitting in the room next to me at Roswell. And he said, Paula, what do you think he said? He said, neither. I'm not a friend and I'm not an enemy. And he said neither. And then the being said, do you want to come aboard? And Colonel Corso said, what do you have to offer me? And the being said, and I have it in all Corso's books, everything he wrote me, a new world if you can take it. And he wrote it on a napkin. And I have the napkin. And I did not want this story, Victoria, because I thought people would think he was crazy. He let the being go. He even told me who he called on the phone. He said, shut down the radar, and the being went. I did not want this story. I was not honest as a journalist because I thought it would make him look crazy in 1997. I wanted the story of the Pentagon, 1960, the back engineering, all the things he had in the nut file, which I got. I got that story. But you need to hear this story because this was the story he gave me when I was next door to him in Roswell. A new world if you can take it. And then he asked me what it meant. And I said, I don't know. He was like, I don't even want to hear this. So I don't know. But you people need to understand, these are what these very important heroes, and Colonel Corso was a hero.
Yes.
He did the Battle of Monte Cassini. He was the head of intelligence. He took me to his office in Rome. I saw everything that he said he did. I verified it all because I could go there with them. So were they testing? Of course. Aren't they now? I mean, of course, are they testing? Yes, of course, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. I don't think the problem is what the government is doing. I think the problem is what humanity is doing.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
So, Victoria, one other thing. Clifford Stone died last February.
Excuse me?
Clifford Stone died last February. He died.
Clifford Stone morreu em fevereiro.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And he did 12 crash retrievals.
Yes, that's right.
And I have the details and the film footage of his talking about that because he met with live and dead aliens. 3 of them were in Vietnam. 3 crash retrievals were in Vietnam. Okay, so I want to thank you because you and I as foreign journalists were the only ones, and I have the photos, sitting in his house in 1997 while everybody else was partying.
That's right.
They all went to parties. They all had good time, and everything. And Vittorio and I was from Italy, he was from Brazil. We went to Clifford Stone's house. And you remember he threw all that stuff on the coffee table?
Yes, I do.
That? And you remember me filming it all? But I didn't know what I was filming. I didn't know what I was taking pictures of.
I remember, of course.
Remember? You remember
Yes.
one canister that had an old tag on it? It said 19. Do you realize that was 8 minutes of the Holloman landing?
No.
It was.
He didn't mention that.
No.
He was very hospitable.
That the CIA said the researchers, the American researchers anyway, because you and I were not American, the American researchers are not interested in this. We will give it to you for 24 hours. If they come to your house and ask to see it, show it to them. And you and I did not know what that was.
No, that's right.
and so I did not ask to see it. I took a movie of it, but I did not ask to see it. He told me later that if we had asked to see it, he would have showed us the first 8 minutes of the Eisenhower Holloman landing. And we didn't ask because we didn't know. I didn't know what that was. But I said to him, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell Vittorio? And he said, because it was a test to see how much they cared. Everybody else was in bars and they were having a good time. You and I are the only ones that went to his house. And he could not tell us, but it was taken away from him 24 hours later.
My goodness, I didn't know that. He was so hospitable. And his wife, Vietnamese wife, very nice person. I remember the Rottweiler dog. Remember?
Yeah.
A beautiful
He was
Rottweiler.
very friendly. You mean he was very friendly. He wanted you and me. He wanted us to ask about that film, but I didn't know and you didn't know.
Well, but when I saw all that stuff on the table, okay, when he opens his office door,
Yes.
all that stuff from his office to put on the table, I was a little ashamed of asking too much because it was the first time in his house. So it was amazing. I was very touched to see all that material in his hands, but at the same time, a little ashamed of asking too much. So I let him lead the situation, whatever he wanted to talk about. We were there to listen. And since he didn't mention anything, I didn't ask. So, my goodness.
I wanted to tell you that because I've been talking about you for the last at least 30 years now. Because you were with me, you were a witness. You can tell the world you were with me.
Ah, yes, I can. Of course.
And you can tell the world that you also saw that.
Yes, I remember I saw it. My goodness, I didn't know, Paola. Oh, my goodness. I'm so surprised, but still honored.
Okay,
So,
all those papers, all those boxes, when he died, went to Jacques Vallée. And they are now at Rice University in Houston. There's over 20 boxes.
Oh, okay. Well, are they in the good hands? We can say it?
In the university, where everything should be.
Okay, that's right. Well,
do you have any footage, any picture of this?
Yes.
Of this event? This is historical.
I know my boss in Italy, Maurizio Baiata. He was my boss. He got it. He was the one that was yelling at me. He said, "What's wrong with you? Didn't you see what was on the table?" And I said, "I didn't know what it was." He said, "Paola." He said, "It was on the table." And it was already gone, Marco. It was already gone in 24. It was a test to show that real researchers, the only ones that went to his house, were foreign researchers. Italy and he's Brazil. The rest of them, I don't think they really care about other stories. I'll be honest with you, Marco. None of the researchers that are famous have read Trinity.
Okay,
that's right.
I believe that.
None of them. They think it's they look everything as commercial. Remember, I said UFO Disneyland. Most of my work is done in Latin America right now. I am going to Argentina, Chile. I've been to the Atacama Desert twice in Chile, Bogota, Colombia, and Peru. I only work in Latin America right now.
But Kevin Randall read your book and wrote an extensive essay about your book. I think you.
Yes, he interviewed us. But remember, when you have books, there's competition there is no money in this field. Every time I go to New Mexico, and I've been there in 10 years, oh goodness, every time I go to Socorro to the crash site, in 10 years, I must have gone at least 20 times. It's $500 a shot. Nobody pays for that. It's hotel, airfare, and so forth. And so it becomes a field where people compete. And it doesn't become an academic field where I wish, if somebody said, "Paola, what would you wish to happen?" I would like to teach a university course and work in a university with all the real research I have done over the years and teach it to students so they can decide what's going on and not have it be a media circus or media stars. You become a media star. I'm not a media star. You have not heard from me mainly because I'm in Latin America doing the work. I love the work. I love the work. I love James Fox's film on Virginia. Okay.
I was about to ask you about that. I
love that. But I also was very close very close and spoke to Roger Lear.
He was there too.
Yes. So I am doing my homework. I cover everybody's story. I read everybody's book. Otherwise, how do you learn about ufology? How do you get a degree? How do you get a degree if you don't read everything and talk to everybody? It is not me, Paola. It belongs to the people of planet Earth. And you cannot hold on to something. You know, Trinity belongs to the people of planet Earth. It is not Paola Harris and Jacques Vallée. We did the work. We did the work, but it does not belong to us. And so Roger Lear, yes, and I don't want to ask the questions I have in a public forum, but Victoria, if you and I get a chance to talk, Roger Lear told me a lot of other things that did not appear in the movie.
Yes, we'll have the chance.
Yeah, I a lot of other things that he found out about, but then there was competition there, and there was, you know, why are you here when you're not from Brazil and all this other stuff, you know, there was a lot of other things that go along with it. So yeah, I have a couple of questions about what Roger Lear said, but the movie is amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad that you liked it. Well, for us, it was just a mark in UFO's history. Also, we are about to go to Varginha. Right now, I'm in São Paulo state, okay? And we're about to go to Varginha next week because we'll have the inauguration of this huge UFO museum in Varginha, dedicated to our research. And we will be showing again the James Fox documentary in Varginha next week with the whole people, the authorities, the mayor, and everybody. It's a huge flying saucer. If you check on the internet, even in the documentary,
I saw it. I did check on the internet. I did.
Okay. We'll be there next week. João Marcelo will be there too with me and other colleagues. And
okay. I would like you to remember that when they ask about the testimony of children, that you remind those 3 girls were not lying.
Okay. They were not lying.
No, and neither were these 2 boys. There was no such thing as UFOs in 1945.
Well, also the girls, very simple girls, they didn't know anything about UFOs. They were not even interested in this subject. They were taken by surprise at that afternoon, January the 20th.
Right.
So, very important eyewitnesses,
and
they were not the only ones.
And their children, and our book has children too, and they were not interested either. They were farm children, and there was nothing they could even see in any of the media because Kenneth Arnold hadn't said anything yet.
That's right. Well, we'll be in touch, and of course we can exchange some information. I'll give you my email. If you can take a pen and a piece of paper, please, and write down.
I want to only come down to places where I can speak to the regular, honest people. Disclosure will never come from the top down, government down, never.
That's right.
It comes from the bottom up.
Yeah, that's right.
Bottom up. And I need to be at the bottom talking to simple, honest people. And that's why Latin America, for me, is where my research will be in the next couple of years.
Okay, Paola, thank you. I just want you to know, unfortunately, we didn't have time to invite you and other colleagues outside Brazil for this inauguration down in Virginia next week. But you will hear a lot. You will see films, videos, pictures. We'll send you, okay? But please feel invited. We will be online, on lives, directly from Varginha, and we will let you know more details about everything, because the only place I know in the world that has a UFO museum close to what we will have in Varginha is Roswell. I've never seen, and I've been in many countries, in many places, it's Roswell and Varginha. The museum in Varginha will be a mark, a symbol forever for our UFO research. And you are one of our colleagues, special colleagues. Please feel invited. You will be there with us in thoughts and in your heart. I'm sure about it.
Thank you. Gracias. Thank you. Victoria, guess who was the first person in 2013 to film the crash site and interview Jose? Guess who it was? James Fox.
Okay.
James
Paola.
Fox was the first person I called. But
Paola,
because it was not famous, because it was not Roswell, he handed me the film.
So you have watched.
He is my good friend. He is my
he's a good person.
Friend. I have known him, his baby, his wife, for years.
Wow.
So yes,
that's great.
But he was the first one to film the crash site and the. So yes, I have worked with him.
Oh, that's great. I'm very pleased to hear that. So you have watched already the documentary?
Yes.
What was your impressions?
It was data. It was cut and dry. It was done with a lot of care. It was a documentary.
Yes.
Which means you didn't invent anything, and unfortunately, it was very dangerous for James to do a lot of the filming. I was very surprised when he went to the house of the man that was driving the car. I knew about Marco Cherice. I mean, that was everywhere. But the man who was driving the car, at the end of the film, my Lord, I have lived those kinds of moments. People don't know because they don't know about me. But I have had 2 car bombs go off in Rome when I was doing the Michael Wolff case.
My goodness.
So I have had robberies, car bombs, all kinds of things happen if you do the work the way the work is supposed to happen. So yes, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's on Netflix now.
Wow.
It's on Netflix. Everybody can see it.
Yes.
What's the name? What's the name?
Moment of Contact.
Moment of Contact.
It's on Netflix already.
Yes.
It was a great job.
It's also, I think, on Amazon Prime.
That's right.
And it's on Netflix. You can see it right now. Yes.
Yes. Not only on Netflix. There are 2 or 3 other channels showing the documentary, and I'm so proud of James Fox. He's a fantastic person, very nice, very kind. He lives in Vermont.
Yes, he used to live in California, and I am very close to his wife and baby. When he had the baby, I was always in California. We're very close.
Oh, that's great. So good to hear.
He used to live in San Francisco. He and Jacques Vallée are very close. So, Jacques did The Phenomenon with him. And so the movie, The Phenomenon. So we are all family. We are all family.
Oh, very nice.
Do you have any questions about?
No, João Marcelo is asking me to remind everybody that the Moment of Contact is on the Amazon, Vimeo,
Netflix,
iTunes,
Netflix.
and Netflix.
And Netflix.
No, not Netflix. Okay. Does anybody have a question? Want to make any question to Mrs. Paola related to Trinity or any other subject? Alguém quer fazer uma pergunta?
About Trinity, something that called out my attention was, if I'm not wrong, it was reported by the children that this creature had some teleporting power, and it seemed like they teleported themselves from one place to another.
Yes.
Is this right?
Yes, the creatures were making a high-pitched sound like a baby crying. So Jose, that was the 9-year-old, thought they were hurt. And he said to me, Paola, if I had gone in there, I would never see you. But I wanted to help them. They were children like us because they were small men, homocitos. They were homocitos, little men. And so when he saw them, they were sliding back and forth. In other words, they weren't walking, they were teleporting back and forth. And in 24 hours, we don't know what happened to them. However, you and I need to talk, Victoria, because Clifford Stone told me that the last crash retrievals he did, they used to leave the bodies outside for their own people to come and get them.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
goodness.
Clifford Stone, I cannot, everybody asks, are they good? Are they bad? Why do they do this? Clifford Stone actually worked in 12 crash retrievals. You need to ask the people that actually did this. And if the being is saying to Colonel Corso, he's neither good or bad, he's neither. Mm-hmm. And Clifford Stone says that he thinks they were cosmic anthropologists, that they were looking at the Vietnam War, then we need to look at ufology in terms of a geopolitical situation. There are a lot of sightings around Ukraine right now. Why aren't people looking at the geopolitics? I mean, UFOs are not an American phenomenon.
That's right.
And
I agree with you.
And it's geopolitics around the world. So whatever is interacting, and I have no answer for you, we need to change the way we do research.
That's right.
Okay. Paola, we have a question from a colleague called Diego Muniz. He wrote it down. I'll make it to you. Just a second. He asks you that Jacques Vallée argues that the UFO phenomenology, when carefully observed, does not support the most common hypothesis of biological beings from another solar system visiting our planet. But according to the hypothesis formulated by Professor Vallée and discussed in several of his books as Passport for Amagonia, the UFO phenomena, when carefully investigated, actually suggest a great theater, and that this theater seems to have the clear objective of influencing human social beliefs by inserting new references of, quote, magical and supernatural to each human historical period. All of this managed by a form of intelligence with capabilities and cognitive structure incomprehensible by our current standards. Could you explain a little more about Jacques Vallée's theory? The beings and spaceships that were supposedly observed, and some would even be in the possession of the armed forces. According to Vallée's hypothesis, could they be considered puppets or avatars? How would Vallée describe the intelligence behind it all? I think our colleague...
What is the name of the person who asked the question?
It's Diego Muniz. Diego Muniz.
Gracias, Diego Muniz. Obrigado. I'm so happy. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you. Because I have a problem myself when Colonel Corso, who worked at the Pentagon, said there were 52 different races including people like us, Nordics, and I began studying the giant rock, Howard Menger, Adamski, all those people. I began studying that. And that's why I went to Latin America to study everything in the Chilca Desert and everything that was happening in Latin America. If there's 52 different races, Colonel Corso said, and he was in the Pentagon, and Clifford Stone says there's 57 different races, that he saw in a manual. And I said, how do you know? And Clifford said, I had the manual because I had to open up when we went to do first aid, or when we're the first responders, I had to know what being was there so I would not kill it. In other words, I had to give the proper first aid. And he was not lying. But I do believe what Jacques says. I think it is theater. And I think it's all of it. All of it. I think there are some beings that are like us. I think there are some beings, like Colonel Corso said, that are extraterrestrial biological entities. I think there are some beings that are, artificial intelligence. I think they're the beings of Virginia that are creatures. I think there is also theater. And it's interesting. I love what he says because we had a long talk. I love the way he expresses it. He said that part is to raise our consciousness. He said the sightings and what happens gets our attention. And it's unexpected. And he said, when you do something unexpected on planet Earth, you change the way people think. You change the way things are. It's a big mystery. And I love that because I was working with nuts and bolts. Remember, I didn't want Colonel Corso's story. I did not want that because my mind could not do it. But we need to do what John Mack said, accommodate our thinking to this new world view. It's a world view. John Mack changed his mind a lot about abductions and so forth. He said, this is that it is all of the mystery of the universe, and the purpose, even the purpose of Trinity, is to get our attention, to raise our consciousness, to grow up as a species.
Okay, thank you very much. Paola, recently we came to know that in the city of the state, a city called Ipuaçu, in the state of Santa Catarina, after many years of silence, emerged a giant crop circle. And I'd like to ask you maybe the last question, but a simple one and a straightforward question. What's your opinion on the crop circle phenomenon?
I can't have an opinion. I don't do crop circles, but I am very close to Colin Andrews. He is my close friend. In fact, I can honestly tell you, the only people I admire in the field are Jacques Vallée, Colin Andrews, and Dr. Stephen Greer. 3. And Colin Andrews has written a book called The Edge of Reality, which deals with consciousness. So I had to have conversation about crop circles. He's crop circles. I'm not crop circles. I can't do opinion. So he told me that even the ones that are man-made are done with the idea in the brain of the person, which means the raising of consciousness. It has an effect on consciousness. And he explained to me that in England, sometimes when they begin the crop circle, the people who make them, the next day they wake up and somebody finished them. So then you need to look at the whole entire field. You need to study everything. In the beginning, there wasn't that. Then it was like, you people do it. And in the end, I found that from my study, and I love the idea of academic, ufology being an academic, study in a university, that all of these roads, all of these data, everything that happens is not because they're on vacation or, it's haphazard. It's an effort to raise human consciousness. Now, do people come from other planets? We don't know. They did say they did in 1950s in Southern California. But if you study Southern California in 1950, we had Yogananda, we had Maharishi, we had people from the Eastern religions. And maybe that was an effort to jumpstart consciousness with the New Age. But the New Age became commercial, like everything we do. It's commercial. It does not lead to spirituality. So when Clifford Stone, who did Crash Retrieval, and Vitório met Clifford Stone, he said, our technology does not match our spirituality. We are irresponsible.
That's right.
I believe that.
That's right.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, everybody, I think we approached the end of this interview. I want to thank you, Paola Harris. La ringrazio molto per aver accettato l'invito.
Piacere è tutto mio. È tutto mio.
Un abbraccio e tanto successo a te. Thank you very much. And I'll pass the word for our colleagues and for your final words. And once again, thank you very much.
Okay.
Leonardo,
Well, once again, I just want to remind you people, next week we'll be in South Minas Gerais state. João Marcelo, my colleague, will be there with me, with other colleagues, for the inauguration of this huge UFO museum, which is it has been worked all around our research in Varginha. So for us, it's an honor. It's very difficult to find in other countries, besides Roswell, of course, a museum like that with that structure, huge UFO. It's a flying disc, immense flying disc. Okay. Next week. But also, Paola, my friend, I want you to know that Varginha has hired this famous lady who makes Christmas decoration. Her name is Joné, Mrs. Joné. She's from South Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul state. We will have a special decoration for this Christmas, and the theme is a Christmas from other world. That's the name. Varginha will be all decorated, okay, with the aliens, with the according to the Varginha research. It will be unique. So I invite you all to be there, and those who can't go, please check on the internet. You will see the decoration, very beautiful, very unique. You won't find it in Brazil's history. Okay, and as my last words, I would like to thank you all for participating in this interview. Paola, my friend, I'm so glad to meet you again. I'll write to you, Paola Harris @hotmail.com. We will be in touch. It was so nice, so wonderful to see you.
It's a beautiful surprise.
It's a wonderful surprise. You're so good. You look so good. I'm very happy, my friend. Okay, we were together at Roswell at that time, and we are together now again. So I thank you very much for our interview. I thank all the colleagues here. Okay, we'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vitório. Thank you for your words, and thank you for your participation You invited this interview along with Mrs. Paola Harris. And Dino, you want to say something or just... Você quer falar alguma coisa em português mesmo, se despedir?
Piacere in conoscere. Grazie.
Grazie a lei, grazie.
Grazie a lui. E até a próxima. Espero poder um dia novamente a gente se encontrar e conversar um pouco mais.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dino. Leonardo?
Well, thank you again, Mrs. Harris. I'm sure you brought a lot for everybody here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonardo, for being there.
Okay, Mrs. Paula, your last words are yours. Please take your time.
Oh, we are not alone. How do you say that in Portuguese?
Não estamos sozinhos.
Não estamos sozinhos. Não estamos sozinhos.
Não estamos sozinhos.
That's
Não
right.
estamos sozinhos.
Okay.
Yes. Very well.
Okay.
Okay.
João Marcelo wants to say a final message to our audience. João? Quer falar alguma coisa para a audiência?
Já faço o encerramento já, né?
Já pode fazer o encerramento.
Sim. Então, eu queria agradecer demais a Paola Harris, o Pacaccini, o Leonardo, o Dino, o Marcos Seixas. Eu creio que foi mais uma live histórica. Ela será legendada e nos próximos dias será compartilhada aí com todo mundo com legendas em português. Queria agradecer mais uma vez a presença de todos e até a próxima live do Identificado no canal João Marcelo, trazendo sempre estrelas aí da ufologia internacional.